Welcome, dear listener, to tonight's sleep story. Tonight, we are traveling to a gentle corner of Middle-earth, far from the noise and clamor of great battles in distant kingdoms. Tonight, we rest in the Shire land of soft hills, quiet rivers, and winding country paths, where life moves slowly, sweetly, and without haste. As you settle in, allow yourself to feel the weight of the day gently melt away. The air is cool here, touched by a light, calming breeze that rustles the leaves just outside your cozy window. The smell of fresh grass, of blooming wildflowers, and warm earth fills the air around you. In the distance, you can hear the faint trickle of a small stream, the occasional chirp of crickets, and the soft creak of an old wooden sign swinging lazily on its post. You are safe here. You are welcome here. There is no rush, no danger, no worry, only the quiet rhythms of life in the Shire, where even the smallest of moments can feel like an adventure when you take the time to truly notice them. Tonight, we follow Holbar Cottonfoot, a gentle hobbit whose days are spent tending to herbs, gathering flowers, and walking the sunlit trails that meander through the green countryside. Holbar is not a warrior or a king. He is a simple herbalist, known for his kind heart, his careful hands, and his knack for crafting soothing teas and healing salves for the good folk of his village. As we walk alongside Holbar, you may notice the sound of the grass brushing softly against his trousers, the jingle of tiny glass vials clinking in his leather satchel, and the quiet satisfaction in his steady, thoughtful pace. Holbar does not hurry. There is no need to. In the Shire, life blooms best when tended gently, when savored slowly, when allowed to unfold like the petals of a morning flower. This story is not about grand quests or perilous journeys. It's about the peace found in familiar routines, the beauty in the simplest of things, and the soft joy of helping neighbors with nothing more than a kind word, a thoughtful remedy, and a listening ear. So, find your most comfortable position. Let your breathing slow, and allow your thoughts to settle like leaves drifting gently to the earth. Tonight, we will walk the quiet lanes of the Shire beneath the soft, golden light of the afternoon sun, as a breeze stirs the hedgerows and the scent of lavender floats on the air. There is nothing you need to do but listen and rest. The paths are gentle, the skies are clear, and the kettle is always warm. Let us begin our journey with Holbar Cottonfoot, the quiet hobbit herbalist whose days are filled with the peaceful, patient rhythm of life in the Shire. Holbar Cottonfoot awoke, as he always did, to the quiet call of the morning birds. Their songs drifted through his small, round window, mingling with the comforting creak of his wooden floor as he slipped out of bed. He stretched slowly, his arms reaching towards the low-beamed ceiling, savoring the warmth of his feather-filled blankets before leaving them behind. In his little kitchen, Holbar carefully filled the kettle and set it to boil over the soft crackle of the hearth fire. He gathered a small bundle of dried chamomile and crushed the flowers gently between his fingers, releasing a calming fragrance that seemed to fill the entire room. As the water warmed, he prepared a modest breakfast of honeyed bread, ripe summer berries, and a slice of mild cheese wrapped in cloth from the market. The kettle soon sang its high, familiar tune, and Holbar poured the steaming water over the chamomile, watching as the pale yellow color slowly spread. He cupped the mug in his hands and stepped outside, where the breeze welcomed him, carrying with it the distant scent of tilled earth and sweet clover. Holbar sipped his tea and gazed out over the quiet village. His garden, thick with wild thyme, sage, and rows of lavender, hummed with early bees already hard at work. Beyond the garden gate, the path stretched invitingly into the hills. Today was a gathering day, and Holbar's satchel was already packed with empty pouches and small glass jars, their cork stoppers rattling softly as he swung the bag over his shoulder. The Shire was a place that loved its patterns, its routines, and its quiet certainties. Holbar's walks were known among his neighbors, who would often wave to him from their doorways or pause their own chores to exchange a few pleasant words. Today, though, the village remained mostly asleep, and Holbar found himself alone as he set out along the familiar path leading toward the woods of Bindlebark Hollow. The grass was still damp underfoot, the morning mist brushing gently against his trousers as he walked. His steps were unhurried, his breathing slow and steady, his senses attuned to the soft rustling of leaves. The glistening cobwebs stretched like silver threads between branches, and the faint, rhythmic clinking of his glass vials with each stride. As Holbar meandered past ancient oak trees and low stone walls, he paused often, kneeling to inspect patches of wild herbs. He gathered a sprig of feverfew here, a cluster of mint there, carefully snipping each stem with small shears. He wrapped them gently in cloth and tucked them into his satchel, mindful to leave enough behind for the bees and for the next passing herbalist. Further along, the path wound its way past a gently burbling brook, its clear waters tumbling over smooth stones. Holbar paused here, settling on a mossy rock as he dipped his hands into the cool water, savoring its refreshing chill. From his satchel, he pulled a simple biscuit, nibbling on it thoughtfully as he watched a family of ducks paddling lazily by, their soft quacks echoing through the stillness. Time passed, as it often did on Holbar's journeys, without urgency. The sun climbed higher, its light growing warmer, as he continued along the trail into the dappled shade of Bindlebark Hollow. The trees here were tall and close-knit, their trunks gnarled with age, their roots winding like ancient serpents beneath the leaf-strewn ground. The hollow had always been a place of quiet wonder for Holbar. It was said that the trees whispered secrets to those who listened, their leaves murmuring tales of long-forgotten seasons. As a child, Holbar had wandered these woods with wide-eyed curiosity, collecting acorns and chasing the flicker of blue-winged butterflies. Now, as an herbalist, he still found peace in the hollow's embrace, its steady hush like a lullaby he never quite outgrew. Along the way, Holbar stopped to collect foxglove leaves, carefully noting their potent nature and a rare patch of golden yarrow, its delicate blooms glistening in the sunlight that slipped through the canopy. His satchel grew heavier, the sweet mingling scents of herbs rising with each step. As he journeyed deeper, the woods seemed to shift subtly around him. The well-trodden path gave way to narrower trails, the trees crowding closer as birdsong softened to a distant echo. Holbar felt the familiar thrill that always stirred in his chest when he ventured beyond the usual routes. There was an unspoken rule among herbalists that the best remedies often grew in the places few dared to go. He found himself approaching a glen he had not visited in many years, its entrance veiled by tall ferns and low-hanging branches. The air here was cooler, carrying the crisp scent of pine and damp earth. Holbar paused, considering. His journeys were usually predictable, a soothing rhythm of familiar places and well-known herbs. Yet today, something called Tehima, gentle pool, a quiet invitation to step beyond the ordinary. With a small, resolute nod to himself, Holbar parted the ferns and stepped into the glen. Sunlight dappled the mossy ground, and in its center, a small stone pool shimmered, fed by a thin trickle of water that sparkled like silver as it fell. Around the pool grew plants Holbar had only read about in dusty volumes, night-blooming cerulean lilies, their petals glowing faintly even in the morning light, and silver-leaf balm, a herb believed to soothe the deepest of fevers. Holbar knelt in quiet reverence, his heart gently quickening with wonder. He had heard whispers of this place, spoken in hushed tones by the older herbalists, but he had never truly believed it to be real. Carefully, he harvested only what he needed, leaving the lilies to bloom, the silver leaf to thrive. As he worked, a soft rustling reached his ears, not the wind, nor the skittering of woodland creatures. It was a voice, faint but distinct, singing a melody both ancient and sweet. Holbar rose slowly, his heart now beating a touch faster, curiosity stirring within him. Following the sound, he moved deeper into the glen, his steps careful, deliberate. There, beyond a curtain of trailing vines, he glimpsed a figure, a woman cloaked in soft green, her hair woven with ivy, her song lilting and low as she gathered herbs of her own. She turned to him, her expression calm, her eyes reflecting the shimmering pool behind her. "You walk far today, Holbar Cottonfoot," she said, her voice like the gentle rustle of leaves. "Few find this place, fewer still are meant to." Holbar bowed politely, his voice steady but quiet. "The herbs called me here. I follow where they grow." The woman smiled, a knowing curve of her lips. "Perhaps it is time you follow more than just the herbs. The Shire is wider than you know, Holbar, and some journeys find us when we least expect them." Before Holbar could reply, she turned, her figure slipping away through the vines, leaving only the lingering echo of her song. Holbar stood in thoughtful silence, his gaze resting on the shimmering pool, the silver leaf in his hand. Something had shifted within him, a seed of curiosity planted, a door gently nudged open. He retraced his steps, the weight of his satchel a comforting reminder of the day's work, yet his thoughts danced ahead to what might lie beyond the familiar trails. As he emerged from the hollow, the sun now settling low in the sky, Holbar felt a quiet excitement stirring within him, as though his peaceful routines had, at last, begun to carry him toward something new. Tomorrow, perhaps, he would return to the glen. Perhaps he would follow the songs and the stories whispered by the trees. But tonight, he would return home, to his garden, his cattle, and the gentle comfort of the Shire. Yet, as he walked, he knew that something had changed, that tomorrow's journey would not be quite the same as today's. His adventure, it seemed, had quietly begun. The following morning arrived with a mist heavier than usual, as though the Shire itself were draped in a silver-gray shawl, soft and cool. Holbar Cottonfoot rose at his customary hour, the comforting chirp of morning sparrows greeting him as he prepared his tea. But today, the familiar rhythm of his life felt subtly altered, like a well-known tune played in a different key. The memory of the woman in the glen lingered in his thoughts, her parting words echoing in the quiet spaces of his mind. Some journeys find us when we least expect them. The map of his day, typically so predictable, now had a blank space and invitation waiting to be answered. With his satchel freshly packed and a small loaf of sea bread tucked securely inside, Holbar set out along the morning wet paths. The village of Bywater stirred gently as he passed, the thatched roofs still glistening with dew, and the scent of wood smoke beginning to curl from the chimneys. Out early again, Holbar called old Tobian Mugwort, the village baker, as he stacked loaves outside his shop. "Aye, the herbs won't wait," Holbar replied, though his destination today was further than any he'd ever gathered from. He passed the familiar fields and the rows of garden walls where children played, yet his feet pulled him onward. Beyond the friendly nods and warm smells of baking bread, toward the edge of the Shire where few hobbits cared to wander. The morning mist clung to his shoulders as he followed the path back to Bindlebark Hollow. But this time he pressed deeper, beyond the trails he knew by heart. The air thickened as the woods grew denser. Spoots sank softly into mossy ground, and the light, filtering through the canopy, took on a greenish hue. Occasionally, the silence was broken by the chatter of squirrels or the startled flutter of a thrush. The well-worn paths of his past were behind him now. As the hours passed, Holbar encountered signs he did not recognize: strange carvings on tree trunks, circular symbols woven from reeds hanging from low branches, and small stone cairns stacked carefully at the sides of the trail. They were neither threatening nor welcoming. They simply were silent markers of some other traveler's passage. His heart beat steadily, but faster than usual. It was not fear exactly, but an unfamiliar exhilaration, a sense that the air itself buzzed with unseen stories. By midday, Holbar reached the glen again. The silver pool shimmered, but the woman was gone. In her place was something else, a small bundle wrapped in soft linen, resting atop a flat stone. Holbar approached carefully and untied the cloth. Inside were herbs he had never seen, their leaves edged in silver and veins of pale gold threading through them. Alongside the bundle sat a note, written in flowing script, for the journey ahead. Beneath it was another simple circle with 4 outward lines, the same as those he had seen carved into the trees. Holbar gently tucked the bundle into his satchel and sat by the pool, pondering what journey these herbs would lead him to. As he sipped from his water flask, he considered returning home, but the path ahead now held a pull too strong to resist. He continued onward. The trail led him deeper into the wilds, through bramble-choked passages and over gurgling brooks crossed by makeshift log bridges. The birds were fewer here, the canopy thicker. Strange plants lined the edges of the trail, pale mushrooms that glowed faintly, vines with bell-shaped blossoms that chimed softly in the breeze. As the sun began its descent, Holbar stumbled upon a clearing where an ancient stone arch stood, its surface covered in twisting ivy. It marked the entrance to something old, perhaps older than hobbits themselves. Without fully understanding why, Holbar stepped through. The air changed instantly, cooler, heavier. On the other side, the forest seemed quieter, as though it held its breath. In the fading light, Holbar discovered a network of stone paths, half swallowed by earth and moss, leading toward what appeared to be the crumbling remnants of a once grand garden. He paused to rest beneath a towering tree whose leaves shimmered silver, like starlight trapped in their veins. There he met another traveling elf named Calenwe. His presence was as quiet as the wind, yet whose eyes spoke of distant ages. Calenwe regarded Holbar with curiosity, remarking, "Few hobbits wander these roads. Fewer still find this place." Holbar explained his journey, the glen, the herbs, and the woman. Calenwe listened thoughtfully, then told him that the forest was once a meeting ground for herbalists, scholars, and guardians of forgotten lore. But over time, the paths had been abandoned, and only a few still knew the way. "There are places beyond this where time flows differently," Calenwe said, "where plants speak in ways most cannot hear, and where those with listening hearts are called to tend the balance." Calenwe offered to guide Holbar to the next resting place, further still from the Shire, where he might learn more of these ancient herbs and the stories they held. As the two traveled together, Calenwe shared tales of herb lore, intertwined with the fabric of Middle-earth plants that could heal memories, flowers that whispered songs of old battles, and rare roots that softened sorrow. Holbar listened with wide eyes, the careful student of a world much vaster than he had imagined. They crossed twilight meadows where willow-de-wisps floated like tiny lanterns and forded streams that shimmered with a faint green glow under the moonlight. At night, they camped beneath the ancient trees, Calenwe teaching Holbar to recognize the soft sigh of leaf spirit songs and to collect dew that shimmered with a faint blue hue, set to carry gentle dreams. Over the following days, Holbar's path became one of subtle discoveries. He learned to move silently through bramble-filled woods, to read the subtle shifts in wind and birdsong that hinted at unseen pathways, and to brew delicate tinctures that calmed even the most stubborn of fevers. They encountered small woodland folk who traded them rare seeds in exchange for stories, and once Holbar caught a glimpse of a towering figure, perhaps an ent, moving slowly through the distant mists. His satchel grew heavy with the rarest of herbs, but more than that, his heart grew heavy with a quiet knowing, the sense that his life in the Shire, while beautiful, had been only the smallest corner of the map. Yet, as their journey wound through forgotten glades and ancient stone circles, a quiet question settled in Holbar's mind. Who had sent the woman to the glen, and why him? Their path eventually led them to a grove where the trees were unlike any Holbar had seen. Their trunks were smooth and silver, their leaves shimmering in a perpetual twilight glow. In the center, a stone table bore a map etched in intricate detail, showing pathways not marked on any Shire parchment. Callum explained that this was the map of the listening paths, a network of forgotten trails followed by those who tended the live-in balance of Middle-earth's quiet places. Your heart has long listened to the plants, Holbar, Calenwe said softly. But now you are called to listen to the paths themselves. As Holbar traced the lines on the stone map, a new journey unfolded before him, one that would carry him beyond the borders of the Shire, beyond the familiar hills and gardens, and into the quiet places where few dared to walk. For the first time, Holbar felt the deep, thrilling certainty that he was no longer simply an herbalist of the Shire. He was now a tender of forgotten roads, a quiet traveler through the sleeping corners of the world. And as the wind whispered through the silver leaves, Holbar Cottonfoot took his next step, ready to follow the path as far as it would lead. When the morning sun rose behind the hills and touched the treetops with gold, Holbar Cottonfoot and Calenwe found themselves still far from the comfort of the Shire. They had passed through many a vale and hill, and the lands grew stranger with every step. The trees of this forest were tall and ancient, with trunks as thick as the largest oaks Holbar had ever seen. Their branches reached toward the sky, thick with silver-green leaves that shimmered faintly, even in the daylight. "This wood is unlike any I have walked before," Holbar said, his voice low with awe as they made their way along a narrow path. "It feels old, older than the oldest tales of old Took or Brandybuck." Calenwe, walking beside him with the light step of the elves, nodded. "It is indeed old, Holbar. These are the Whispering Woods, a place once beloved by the elves and the forest guardians. Many secrets lie buried here, forgotten by most who dwell beyond." Holbar's heart beat faster. Venture, he thought, was no longer a tale told by firesides, had become his very road. The path wound beneath boughs, heavy with moss and curling vines. Birds sang strange songs, and faint lights flickered among the branches, glimmers of fairy folk, perhaps, or woodland spirits that no hobbit had seen before. Holbar glanced upward, wide-eyed. "Do you believe in such things?" he asked. Calenwe smiled, a soft and knowing smile that made his pointed ears glow pink in the morning light. "Believe. I know them to be true. This forest breathes magic as surely as you breathe air. The elves who once guarded these woods still leave their footprints in the leaves, if one only looks carefully." As they traveled, the sounds of the forest deepened, the murmuring of leaves in the wind, the soft crackling of twigs beneath their feet, and the distant rush of a stream hidden somewhere among the trees. Holbar pulled his cloak tighter, feeling the chill of the early morning and the hum of enchantment that seemed to fill the air. They came upon a clearing where the sunlight spilled like molten gold across a bed of wildflowers. At the center stood a great stone, worn smooth by countless years of rain and wind. Oh, it was marked with strange runes and spirals, curling in patterns that Holbar could not decipher, but that seemed somehow familiar, as if echoing a song long forgotten. "This must be a marker of old," Calenwe said softly. "The elves called this place the Heartstone. It is said that those who stand upon it can hear the whispers of the forest soul." Holbar stepped forward hesitantly and placed his foot upon the stone. At once, the sounds around him shifted. The rustle of leaves grew clearer, the murmur of the wind transformed into faint voices, speaking in a language he did not know. It was not frightening, but mysterious and gentle, like a lullaby sung beneath the stars. He turned to Calenwe, eyes wide with wonder. "Do you hear it?" Calenwe nodded. "The forest remembers Holbar. Listen well, for these whispers carry warnings and wisdom." They rested there for a time, letting the soft voices wash over them until the sun climbed higher and the forest brightened once more. Then, with renewed purpose, they pressed onward. The trail led them to a bubbling brook, its waters so clear that Holbar could see pebbles and fish darting beneath the surface. Calenwe knelt beside it and dipped a hand into the cold, fresh water. We shall fill our flasks here. Water from these woods will sustain us for many days. Holbar smiled and pulled from his pack a small pouch filled with dried herbs gathered from earlier travels, wild thyme, chamomile, and a handful of honeysuckle blossoms. Callan accepted the gifts with gratitude, adding them to the contents of his own satchel, where ancient scrolls and elven-made remedies mingled quietly. Your knowledge of herbs will serve us well, Calenwe said, for not all dangers come from the sword. This forest holds many poisons, as well as many cures. Holbar's fingers tingled at the thought. He was no warrior, but a healer and seeker of remedies. To walk beside an elf who understood the ancient ways was a blessing and a challenge alike. They followed the brook upstream, and soon the trees began to thin, revealing the distant outline of a hill crowned with crumbling stonework. At its base was a heavy wooden gate, bound in iron and carved with patterns that shimmered faintly, as if alive. This must be the old fortress of Calenwe said, once a stronghold of the woodland elves, now fallen to ruin. Many years ago, it guarded the border between light and shadow. Holbar stepped forward, running a hand over the gate's cold surface. Do you think it is safe? Calenwe's eyes grew serious. Safe? No, but necessary. We ought to protect the balance. We must enter and seek the counsel of the forest's last guardians. With a push, the gate creaked open, revealing a narrow stone stairway winding into the hillside. The air grew cooler and damp as they descended, and the faint glow of bioluminescent moss illuminated the ancient steps. At the bottom lay a cavern, wide and filled with the scent of earth and stone. Thin figures stirred, tall and slender, robed in green and brown, with eyes bright as stars in the dark. They were the last of the forest's watchers, elves who had remained when most had departed. One stepped forward and bowed. Welcome, Holbar, Cottonfoot and Calenwe of the Greenwood. We have awaited your coming. Holbar's heart leaped with a mixture of fear and honor. These were beings of legend, the silent guardians of the wild places. Our forest falters, the eldest watcher said. Darkness gathers beyond the edges, creeping like a shadow to choke the life from our trees and rivers. You carry the stone tablet of old, and with it the hope of renewal. Callan held the tablet carefully, its surface etched with lines and symbols that glowed faintly in the dim light. The knowledge it contains is ancient and sacred, he said. You must use it wisely. Key, the watcher spoke then, a forgotten lord, the weaving of spells to protect the earth, the songs of growth and healing, and the ways to call upon the wild magic hidden deep beneath the roots. Holbar listened with rapt attention, eager to learn and carry this wisdom forward. Days turned to nights, and the cavern echoed with the soft hum of incantations. Holbar worked alongside Calenwe and the watchers, mixing potions from rare herbs, learning to listen not only with his ears, but with his heart. The forest was alive in every breath, every pulse of light and shadow. One evening, as the moon rose full and bright, Holbar stood outside the cavern and looked up through the branches to the silver stars. The whispers of the forest were louder than ever, and he felt their urgent call. Tomorrow, Calenwe said beside him, we journeyed to the heartwood tree. It is the oldest and greatest of all trees here. Its roots run deep into the earth's very heart, and its branches touch the heavens. There, the magic of the forest is strongest, and the fate of these woods will be decided. Holbar nodded, feeling the weight of what was to come. The road ahead was uncertain and dangerous, but he was no longer the timid hobbit of the Shire. He was a guardian now, bound to the life of the forest and the hope it carried. As they rested beneath the ancient boughs, Holbar whispered a quiet vow to the stars and the earth alike, to protect the whispering woods, to honor the old magic, and to carry its light forward, no matter the shadows that might seek to snuff it out. The morning dawned pale and slow, the sky a watercolor wash of soft pinks and grays. Holbar Cottonfoot woke beneath the shimmering silver leaves of the twilight grove. The map of the listening paths etched in stone, still fresh in his mind. His fingers traced the delicate carvings one last time before he gathered his things and stood. Calenwe was already awake, the elf's slender form blending almost invisibly with the silver bark of the ancient trees. "The paths call," Calenwe said softly, offering a small smile that held the weight of centuries. Holbar nodded. "I am ready." They set out from the grove together, stepping onto one of the etched pathway's narrow, winding stone trails that seemed to pulse faintly beneath their feet. The air was cooler here, imbued with a quiet magic that made every breath feel alive, every leaf sing a muted song. "Where do these paths lead?" Holbar asked, peering ahead. "Two places forgotten by most," Calenwe answered. "Cold crossroads, where the world's secrets are kept safe by those who remember." They walked for hours, the forest shifting subtly around them. Trees grew taller and more ancient, their branches entwined in shapes like hands reaching out. Strange flowers bloomed in moonlit colors despite the daytime sky. Soft, shadowy creatures flickered at the edges of their vision, neither quite animal nor spirit, but something in between. Holbar's senses sharpened. He could hear the faint heartbeat of the earth beneath the path, feel the low hum of life swirling through the roots and leaves. It was as though the land itself was breathing with them, whispering in languages lost to time. At midday, they paused at a clearing where a crystalline pool mirrored the sky. Calenwe knelt beside it, plucking a small cluster of iridescent petals that shimmered like liquid silver. "This flower," the elf explained, "is called the Moon's Whisper. It is said to hold the power to ease restless minds and guide lost souls." Holbar carefully added a few petals to his satchel, marveling at their delicate beauty. As they rested, Calenwe spoke of the listening paths, their purpose, their guardians, and the sacred duty they held. "These paths are alive," Calenwe said. They remember the footsteps of those who came before. They carry stories and songs, joys and sorrows. To walk them is to become part of their song. Holbar felt a deep stirring in his heart. The woman in the glen, the mysterious herbs, the maple pieces of a larger tapestry he was only beginning to understand. They resumed their journey, the trail dipping down into a valley veiled in mist. Here, the air grew thick with the scent of wild thyme and honeyed blossoms. Tiny lights danced between the trees. "Willow, the wisps," Calenwe whispered. "Ancient spirits of the forest who guided travelers or led them astray, depending on their intent." Holbar moved cautiously, remembering the old stories his grandmother told him, tales of hobbits lost to the forest forever, or found changed, speaking strange words and never quite the same. Yet these paths did not seem dangerous. Rather, they felt sacred, protective. Calenwe's calm presence was a shield against fear. As evening approached, they reached a stone circle nestled atop a gentle hill. The stones were worn smooth by time, covered in runes, glowing faintly with blue light. "This is a place of power," Calenwe said reverently. "A gathering ground for those who tend to balance. Here, the earth speaks more clearly." Holbar knelt beside one of the stones, placing his palm on the cold surface. He closed his eyes and listened, not with his ears, but with his heart. Images came. A vast forest spreading under starlit skies, hands weaving bundles of herbs, voices humming ancient melodies, a single seed falling into dark earth and bursting into bloom. He felt the pulse of life, fragile and fierce, delicate yet enduring. This was why he had been called here, not just to gather herbs, but to protect and preserve the quiet magic of the land. Night fell, and they camped within the circle, a small fire casting flickering shadows. Calenwe taught Holbar to prepare tea from the moon's whisper petals, its scent calming and sweet, bringing dreams filled with starlight and whispers of the old world. In sleep, Holbar dreamed of paths stretching beyond horizons, of trees with silver leaves and rivers singing forgotten songs. He awoke with a new resolve to follow wherever these listening paths might lead. Days passed. The trail twisted through ancient woods, past ruins swallowed by ivy and time. They crossed silver streams that sparkled with unearthly light, and fields of wildflowers humming softly in the breeze. Each place told a story. Each leaf held a secret. Holbar's knowledge grew. He learned of herbs that mended broken hearts, roots that soothed weary spirits, and flowers that sang with the memories of seasons long past. One day, near a glade where a faint golden light filtered through amber leaves, they met an old woman, a guardian of the land, whose eyes gleamed with knowing and kindness. "You walk the paths few dared to tread, young herbalist," she said, her voice like the rustle of dry leaves. "The herbs you carry are more than mere plants. They are keys to healing and harmony." She spoke of the balance between growth and decay, of the fragile dance between life and death, and how those who tended the plants must also tend the stories they held. Holbar listened, humbled and eager. Before departing, the woman pressed into his hand a small pouch of seeds, teeny, star-shaped and glowing faintly. "Plant these where the earth feels empty," she instructed. "They will grow with the songs of the lost." Holbar tucked the pouch carefully into his satchel, feeling the weight of responsibility settle over him. The journey led them next to a valley where time itself seemed too slow. The air shimmered, and the colors of the world deepened into rich, glowing hues. Here, ancient trees towered like sentinels, their bark etched with glyphs that hummed with power. Calenwe explained that this was the Veil Wood, a place where the boundaries between the seen and unseen were thin. "To walk here is to glimpse the deeper layers of the world," the elf said. "To hear the songs beneath the songs." Holbar felt a strange sensation, as if his senses stretched beyond their usual limits. He could see faint shapes moving through the shadow spirits of the land, whispers of forgotten things. They came upon a hidden spring, its waters pure and sparkling. Calenwe dipped a vial into the pool, collecting a few drops. "This water," the elf said, "is called the Tears of the Earth. It carries the power to restore what has been broken, to heal wounds both seen and unseen." Holbar thought of the Shire, of its rolling hills and quiet fields, and wondered what healing might be needed beyond its borders. As the days turned to weeks, Holbar felt his old life slipping further away, its comfort, its familiarity, its gentle rhythms. In its place rose something new, a sense of purpose, a quiet strength, and a connection to the vast, breathing world around him. He learned to move like a shadow through the woods, to read the songs in the wind and the stories in the stars. He crafted remedies from plants no Hobbit had ever seen, and with each one, a piece of the land's memory seemed to flow into his hands. Calenwe remained his guide and friend, sharing tales of elves and men, of ancient battles and forgotten kings. Together, they uncovered relics of the past, carved stones, forgotten temples, and scrolls of faded script that told of the land's deeper magic. Holbar found himself changed, not just by the knowledge he gained, but by the journey itself. The quiet herbalist of Bywater was becoming something else, a keeper of stories, a guardian of balance, a traveler between worlds. One evening, beneath a sky dusted with stars, Calenwe spoke softly. "Holbar, you have walked far. The path ahead is yours to choose. Will you return to the Shire or continue on these roads less traveled?" Holbar looked up at the shimmering canopy, his heart full. He thought of the cozy Hobbit holes, the laughter of friends, the peaceful fields. But he also felt the pull of the wild places, the call of the listening paths, the stories yet untold. "I will follow where the paths lead," he said at last. "For the land has stories that need tending, and I have learned to listen." Calenwe smiled, a quiet pride in his gaze. "Then your journey truly begins." And so, Holbar Cottonfoot stepped forward into the night, the weight of ancient herbs and new dreams upon his shoulders, ready to walk the listening paths, a quiet guardian in the vast and whispering world.